Okay, hello and welcome everyone to episode 2 of the chat bubble. So, why are we here? Will designers like us survive the wave of AI disruption? You sought answers to this question in the first episode of the chat bubble, How to Be a Timeless Designer, with Karthi Subaraman. The second time round, we have Apala Lahiri, co-founder of HFI APAC, back from the future, exploring AI, future chic. But I don't know if you know this, but she's from Pondicherry, so a little bit of French is good. Future chic or future shock, as an Alvin Toffler. And you need to know from her what's going to happen to you and your work as a designer. Okay? Apala helps you chart a path forward in HCI, human-computer interaction. But interesting, isn't it? When the computer starts authoring the interaction and design in HCI, then what's the role of the human? What is the new role ahead for you as the human and for humans in HCI? Will the human designer survive or thrive? Will AI make the future chic in terms of design, like take it to another level of excellence? Or will it be devastation? Or will it be design is great, but no designer to be found anymore? Those are the questions burning for us. And for that, we'd love to welcome Apala to our chat bubble. Who is Apala for me? We all know her. You can Google her. She's all over the internet. She is, for me, she is a UX activist. She's driven by human values, focused on inclusion. She understands the need of all humans for dignity, equality, freedom, and respect. Both Paul and I resonate with this. She's a culture mapper, traversing across continents and cultures, understanding human values, and how to bridge the magic of design to transform life across all diversities of humans. She is a futurist who peers equally well into the past, and she loves to draw cross connections across space and time. Paula is a mathematician who started as a programmer and immediately fell in love with design instead. She's a PhD in design, blessed with a beginner's mind. You must check out her videos at HFI and AI. And there's one more thing about her I'm going to tell you. But before that, I'd like to introduce to you my co-host. This is Manvi Agarwal. She's our co-host. She's a computer science graduate with a master's in digital design and with 5 years of industry experience working as a full-time professional designer in Italy. She's now back in India to plant her feet into the soil of this country and bring design and the design revolution here. So she is volunteering in DesignRev and helping us with this. So thank you, Manvi, for everything. And thank you, Apala, for joining in. So what is that one thing about Apala that I want to tell you? More than design. She loves to dance.
I have to show you this, though. I think I'll go back a little. Can you see this?
Wow. Oh, wow. There she goes. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, nice. Thank you so much. Right. That's fantastic. Yes. So Apala loves to dance. And Apala, why do you love to dance? This is the first question I really want to ask you.
That's very interesting. It's the first time I think anybody's asked me that. For me, dance is really about freedom. And every day as you work in ultimately a corporate environment, you're interacting with clients, etc., there's always a box, no matter how big it is, but it's a box in which you exist. And then dance just sets you free. At least it sets me free. It just lets me, express myself. It lets me, the sort of the free spirit that I am, it lets that just be. So that's why I just love dance.
Everybody, this is the sign that you know that you're talking to a design person, because design is born from art and art is born from culture. And if you've not made that connection, you're not yet into design. And that's what I appreciate about Apala here. I love dance, and that is what is the other common point between Apala and me, is because for me, dance is a meditation, and I do it to unblock creativity and to nurture more creativity amongst me and my friends. It's amazing. From dance, let's move into the dance with AI as part of human computer interaction. We had so many conversations, everybody, together on this topic that we bring to you today, that I don't think we'll be able to even do justice to the depths both of us have gone to. So I'm going to leave it to you, Apala. What's the first point that you want to make in this session? You just roll with it.
I think one of the most important points to me as I scan the ecosystem about AI and everything that's being talked about is the idea that AI is either all good or all bad, but nothing is. The popular narratives about AI at this moment they tend to take very extreme positions. So AI will save the world or AI will destroy the world. It just seems too black and white. I think there are many shades of gray, maybe more than 50, in terms of how AI will pan out in the world. And so I think it's very important to not get carried away with very extreme positions. That's the first point I would like to make.
It's interesting you're talking about shades of gray, and we don't know whether this is a game of seduction with a femme fatale, right? Called AI. So
Sure.
rather than ask you which type of shades of gray are you talking about, I would like to know what will determine which shade of gray we're going to experience about.
I think the shade of gray or shades of gray we experience, or the goodness or badness of AI's impact on the world, it really depends on the intent of the creators and users. And, interestingly, given the popularity of the movie Oppenheimer at this point in time, let's take that example. Let's take the example of nuclear power. So we know that the process of enriching uranium to make it, into fuel for nuclear power stations is exactly the same process that is also used to make nuclear weapons. So there is this one thing, this one process that can be used for such widely different outcomes, good and bad. And I think AI is very much like that. And in fact, there are many AI scientists and researchers who are likening their work on AI today to the physicists of the mid-20th century working on the Manhattan Project, on the, the project that led to the atom bomb. So they are therefore calling for, AI scientists and researchers are calling for putting more international governance or guardrails in place, citing that project as a cautionary tale, saying what looks good, you don't know how ultimately we will use it. So therefore, to make sure it'll be used for the benefit of humanity, let's learn from what has happened in other areas. And of course, the atom bomb comes up all the time. And as history is supposed to repeat itself, first as tragedy and then as farce, let's avoid that. We've had this before, let's learn from it. So I think, therefore, that determination of what shade of gray, and let's hope it's not all black. It usually cannot all be white and full of light. It really is up to us, and we better make sure we are cognizant of that.
Okay, so what you're saying is that AI is amoral, right?
Exactly.
Just like gravity, whether you fight it or you break your nose, it's up to you. But gravity is amoral, AI is amoral.
Exactly.
Nuclear energy is amoral. And here, everybody, I want to share a very, very deep insight that I use in my design workshop. It's a design aphorism. Design is amoral. You can use it, you can use it for evil. So it's very interesting. Now we take AI and we take design, and both are amoral.
Yeah.
And we're saying you could use design for and with AI to do great things, bad things, evil things, ugly things, whatever you want. We don't know. But look, the futurist of Apala goes back to the history of the world and says, let's learn from there. let's see what is it going to be, a farce, a
Yeah.
tragedy, whatever we want to do. And we should learn. But the one thing that history teaches us, we never learn.
That's the problem.
That's the
That's the
problem,
fear.
right? And so the role of the designer is becoming very deep in this game, right? For example,
Yes.
you are talking about this, but we know how design really happens, right? First, it will go into the hands of those who have to misuse it, right? And then they're the ones who garner all the campaign, all the traction and everything. So I want to ask you this, Apala, what, according to you, is an example of a fork in the road that will lead to starkly different consequences for the human race, depending on the road selected?
Yeah, we have to ask Robert Frost, the poet, the road less traveled. Should we take that? Or, but yeah, I think one major fork that, according to me, is very important to decide in this entire AI journey as it develops further is what is the outcome that we are looking for, and therefore the application of AI. So is it about automation, or is it about augmentation, or is it about both? And just to be clear, to me, automation really implies that machines take over a human task. And augmentation means that humans collaborate closely with machines to perform various tasks. So I think we have to be very clear as creators, what are we looking at as the fundamental philosophy of any AI system? If it's about automation, then there is this whole global scenario, this narrative that's playing out of industries affected by job losses due to AI, due to general automation also. And there's, Yuval Noah Harari, who has talked about how a huge useless class, that's how he terms this phenomena, huge useless class might appear owing to both an absolute lack of jobs because of AI and, the automation that will happen, and also resulting lack of relevant education and mental flexibility. We know the writers and actors strike in Hollywood just because it's Hollywood, so it gets a lot of attention. That has brought this aspect of job losses due to generative AI, due to other AI systems, very much to the forefront. And so we are constantly hearing this about job losses happening and are projected to happen. And that will be the case if we blindly look at automation as the fundamental outcome of AI systems. Then these dystopian scenarios are, of course, possible and they will play out. But that doesn't have to be so. I think it's important that AI systems, as they are developed, it is assessed that what is the best approach for the end user. Is it to automate or augment? And it maybe dynamically changes, right? Some tasks may be best for automation today, but tomorrow the human user really wants to do that. Or there may be some tasks that are always good to automate, and it's augmentation doesn't happen. But there are some tasks where augmentation should happen all the time, even if an AI system can do it better. So that question, when should we automate or when should we augment, has to be a fundamental part of deciding how we are creating an AI system and what is it that it is going to do. And to me, the question, when automate, well, if the 3Ds, if it's a difficult job, it's a dangerous job, it's a dirty job, automate it. Augmentation is, for tasks people enjoy doing. People want to evolve their own skills in a certain direction. They want to fulfill their own values and preferences by doing certain tasks. Then those tasks need to be done by human beings. And so, I also look at all the robots, which are nothing but embodied AI, right? They are doing the 3Ds so many times. So you see these automobile factory robots, which are executing the same repetitive assemblies over and over, very precise and with no complaint, no fatigue. There are robots crawling around in dark sewers, and we know of Bandicoot, which is made in India, a robotic scavenger that cleans sewers, and therefore that horrible degrading and dehumanizing work of manual scavenging, we are sort of trying to say that doesn't need it. We don't need human beings to do that, but the task has to be done. So there's the perfect example where AI can help and should be deployed. And of course, there's so many other things like, cleaning up contaminated sites or diffusing bombs, no doubt should be automated. But as Ben Schneiderman, very well known in our field of human-computer interaction, user experience design, he has said when speaking about his idea, his approach of human-centered AI, he says that AI can advance in ways that support rather than erode fundamental human aspirations. And he says, and I quote, "I want to support technologies that help people to realize their hopes. I envision a future in which technology innovations respect human values, rights, and dignity, while it promotes fairness, equity, and justice." And so he says human-computer, human-centered artificial intelligence can illuminate that pathway, that development of AI, that pathway towards achieving those goals. And several universities now have adopted this, that further work on AI, the next frontier of AI, it's not just technological, it's got to be also humanistic and ethical. And the goal must always be augmenting human capability, enhancing humans rather than replacing them. So yeah, that's the fork in the road. Automate, augment. Be very careful. Don't go with, cost benefit, let's automate. And then it's so much cheaper to produce stuff, more productivity because they're machines. I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Well, that's a very interesting point you made here.
In the design work, that we do from our organization, what I see is that there are areas in that whole human-centered design journey. There are some miles, usually the miles at the start of the journey, where using generative AI, for example, is very helpful because it's increasing the efficiency with which designers who are not really experienced in the team are also able to come up to speed. And that we are using a lot. So, for example, we were going to do some, as a design team, we were asked by a client to design usability testing for a device, a medical device that had been designed. And, they wanted that because it's part of their submission to the government, etc. Now, what are the current standards that for example, the FDA has, which need to be understood and followed in creating a usability testing plan? Now, this was instant in asking and getting the answers via ChatGPT and then interrogating it a little, because everything that you get is not the most accurate. But it just, if it's a 10-mile journey, the first 5 miles were covered within 15 minutes. We got the information, and then we could, take our time to think through, strategize, all of that. But I cannot think of eliminating the designers and researchers completely, because there is such a lot of critical thinking and thinking that requires connecting different dots, things that are not very clear. ChatGPT looks at data that it has been trained on, but things change. And what happens then? Those answers aren't available. Right now, at least, it's not available, right? The designer, the researcher needs to be in place. So I just cannot see how designers and researchers can completely be done away with. I haven't found a way that can be, even if, I wanted to, which I don't want to, but even if I wanted to, I don't see how it can be done. Yes, it's helping a lot, but just doing completely, outsourcing design and research to an AI system, I just don't see how it can be done right now.
Now, the teams shrink. You see, that's the best part. And what you just mentioned, that what the teams were doing got automated. Because it was just to understand the FDA process and everything, right? So that got
automated. More than automated, I would say it gives me access to information very quickly. So the time I would need to find information and train the entire team, if it was, say, a hypothetical 10 hours, now it became 2 hours because of that. And so the entire distance to be covered now just shrank. But yes, but one thing I will say, if we needed, say 3 junior designers and researchers to do all the pre-work, to find all the information, etc. Now you need one person who can do that. That is true. However, can you change some of the things that one does in design, go towards more strategic or innovative design? There, I need all my designers, irrespective of what generative AI I can use or not use. But if it's some kind of design or research which is very formulaic, or if we make it formulaic, if we like to use templates to do wireframes and get a pattern and use that for creating design, in that case, that's where we'll be affected badly, because now all of these wireframes and all you can ask and get, at least to begin with. You don't have to struggle as much as one would have to earlier. So if we go towards more formulaic designs, formulaic test plans, then I'm afraid, yes, we will end up shrinking our design. When I say our, I mean our community.
Production is going to be taken over for sure. All aspects of production are going to be replicated in AI. But at the same time, what I notice is where AI is facing not the designer, but the client.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that what was being done by the designer, now that the AI is stepping forward in the experience, it has made the designer disappear. This is the new thing that I saw. And this is very, very interesting, because the designer had to kind of shape experiences and interactions and everything to move it and shape it. Now AI is doing it.
I say I have not encountered an AI system that allows a full experience to emerge, all designed, shaped, everything. I just haven't found one.
Not full. It's a shrunk team and it does it.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. And the more we can think of where then do we deploy our design skills, when there are parts of our design journey which is now being taken over. So how do we innovate to make design go to another level where our skills are also used? And I think it's a test of our design skills. And there are many. And I won't say it's just because designers go towards, pulling out templates and using. Clients often push for, okay, why don't you just take, these 10 templates and just reproduce, right? Where's the thinking behind that? So that part of why is this template that I'm getting from ChatGPT, by giving it a nice enough prompt or series of prompts, why is that not as good as if I worked with it to give you something better? If we worked together, the AI and the human, designer worked together, can we show how much better that would be than any of us individually?
Okay, so what you're saying is that fork, if I can come back to you, is starkly different consequences based on whether we focus on automation, implementation, both, and we need to be very, very clear about how we are deploying this and how we are easing our work and moving forward. But then you just mentioned that we are testing ourselves, we need to evolve ourselves, we need to be able to shape design to another level now. And therefore, what then is going to be fundamentally different with the human-centered approach with AI? Do you sense that? What's your thought on that?
I sense that, again, I think tracing a way forward from the augmentation conversation, I think we need to move from human-computer interaction to human-computer collaboration to see what ways can we create better solutions when there is collaboration between the machine and the human, instead of looking at, the machine will produce everything very quickly and the human will just not be able to work so hard and the human can only work in certain areas. What if we came together and worked and we allocated to each other, the non-human and human team members allocated to each other different parts of a task, some parts where the system, the AI system is going to be better, and some parts where I as a designer can be better. This collaboration, and therefore everything, all the frameworks and processes in design will have to change to accommodate a different way of thinking. And we know that, we use this idea of function allocation. It has been used for a long time in HCI and UX design, where we kind of say, okay, this is the whole problem statement and we've got to solve this and create designs. But what can, out of these things that are meant to be the tasks that are going to be designed for the interaction, which elements of these tasks will a computer do better? And for a long time, we then assign, okay, these parts a computer will do, and these parts the human user will do. And the thing is that this decision is taken, so far, the decision was taken by the computer scientists, by HCI UX designers, developers, and the decision is, okay, these things the computer will do, these things the end user will do in this experience we are designing. And then the computer will just execute the decision because it's been programmed, right? Now, with the addition of the learning capabilities in AI-based machine intelligence, now is the opportunity to explore how this function allocation between the human and the computer can be dynamic. Can it be done on the fly? Can dynamically I and my AI partner decide that, okay, you'll do this, I'll do this, because you'll do this quickly and I need this quickly? Or at some points, no, I want to do this. I know you'll do it quickly, but I want to do this, so that there is no fixed set in stone that I'll always have to do this and you'll always have to do this. Can we dynamically, as the machine learns and it can see what I like, what my ways of working are, can we keep changing our goals about how we work together? And the interesting thing is that, I read some articles by Harvard Business Review. They had written it actually about maybe a year and a half ago. And they call this the future of work, and they term it the new diversity, where all workplaces, if we are going to stay on and evolve as a human race, then new workplaces will have to redesign themselves for accommodating teams that are made of humans and non-humans. And that diversity and inclusion is what they say is going to be very important if businesses keep harping on cost savings. Then they'll keep positioning AI systems as the super employee, superior to human beings. And the narrative will go towards a dystopian future where it's all about forgetting about any creativity. It'll all be homogenized kind of thinking and working, etc. And so what HBR says is, don't do that. Let's look at how we can create a diverse set of humans and non-humans, and that they call augmented intelligence. It's neither artificial nor human, it's a combination of both. And this, according to them, will define which workplaces will do well as whether humanity is, thinking about how they can accommodate machines in themselves instead of making it an either-or situation. And I'll tell you, in my work as a researcher, more than anything else, I play around with ChatGPT and GPT-4. And what I found very interesting is, if I didn't have these systems, when I go for any research strategy and research work in a different culture, so I was thinking about South Africa, where we've done a lot of work, and I thought, okay, let me test ChatGPT. Maybe 7 years ago, there was a particular research and strategy project, which is, has always been very dear to my heart. It was to create strategy for unbanked people in South Africa. And so before we embarked on the actual project, there was a lot of pre-work, right? You needed to have the information about the culture, about what's going on, about the unbanked versus the rest of the population. And so in ethnography and anthropology, you have the concept of an informant. An informant is somebody who is from the culture. And as a person from outside the culture, like the anthropologists used to be, but now the designers and researchers, the informant from the culture gives us the exposure we need, the ideas that we need to understand about that culture. What I did is ask the same questions to ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And I got so many interesting answers, which when I look back, it took us a whole month of trying to figure out. I got all those answers now. What I didn't get, though, are the insights. I got answers based on facts that it has, that it has in its repository of learning. But when connecting 2 and 2 and leapfrogging to the 10, not just the 4, that I didn't get. So I compared the insights I got 7 years ago with the insights it's giving me. The insights are very shallow. The facts are correct. So if I had got those facts, 7 years ago, if I had this opportunity of quickly getting all these facts, I think it would have been even more inspiring in terms of how I could I could then, as the human researcher and designer, I could use those facts, connect them, and try different things, which when I spent so much time just getting the information, I couldn't try different solutions in that situation. Now I can, because that initial work is so much quicker. So I see those are ways in which one can collaborate. I'm also trying to use ChatGPT, being inspired by this book called Death of an Author, which is a really interesting collaboration between a human, very well-known human author and generative AI platforms, where 95% of that book, of the novel, it's a piece of fiction, is written by AI. But the author tells you how he did it. And it was a painstaking collaboration. He had to be really brilliant in order to get the best from his generative AI tools. Otherwise, I've read a lot of supposedly machine-written literature, and it's rubbish. It's just boring and awful. But this one was very interesting. But then the author has a whole comment section at the end of the book where he says how he worked with 2 different generative AI tools and how he kept refining how, the input he got, the input he gave and the output he got, and he would have to work hard. And he says, to get really good literature, if you are collaborating with AI, you need a brilliant author or somebody who has knowledge equivalent to a PhD in comparative literature. You can't expect that the generative AI will just give you, world-class work. I thought that was interesting, and I'm trying that within my writing also. And you can't expect at this moment, there is that quality of creativity is not embedded in the output you get from generative AI, but it'll get there, I'm sure. So we better start collaborating, or the developers and scientists better think about collaboration instead of saying, okay, we'll take all of this away from you.
But there is something very interesting in what you're saying. There's so much you shared here. Thank you so much. I mean, it's enriching. And everybody, you should rewind later and go at half speed and read it carefully and listen to her carefully. She packed quite a punch there. Thanks, Apala. I have a question here. What you've done here is profound. You are saying that we're going to bring anthropomorphology first into the machine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And make that machine into a human for our relationship and in collaboration. And then it will be how a human responds to a human. We will simulate that with a machine because the illusion is near perfect. And then you're saying make that into a collaboration. Now that's very interesting because you're calling it inclusion. And you're taking it even further into the cultural concepts of inclusion into which you are so deep yourself. Diversity, inclusion, belonging. And then you want the AI to have this sense of belonging. But here's something I find interesting. You also make it a flat organization, which is really simplifying it. If I may say so, oversimplifying. Okay? You're saying that the human is dynamic, but that's a very diplomatic way of saying sometimes the AI can decide what the human will do. But also the human is deciding what the AI can do. The human is saying, let me grab this bag from you and let me do it. Sometimes
that's right.
Say, listen, let me do it better for you. And then you're explaining why you need to do it. So what I see here is a ping pong, not just a collaboration, but what I also see here is there are moments when the AI is going to play the role of the boss.
What I feel is that the new approach, and it really is, credit goes to Professor Ben Schneiderman, this whole human-centered artificial intelligence approach, because what it is doing, it's saying the algorithm is not the center of focus. It's the human being that is the center of focus. Never forget that. Right. And so they have some, processes which are very interesting and which I think are relevant to this point that you brought up, which is that one is a concept called human in the loop. Okay. And so this human in the loop concept apparently has been there, in other disciplines, but now it's being looked at by several HCAI folks to be very important part of building, an AI system. And the human in the loop is basically saying there should always be a human being correcting, looking, observing, and seeing if an autonomous system is misbehaving, then to be able to stop, to be able to override, and to make the system learn that behavior is not allowed, and also to be able to reinforce what an AI system should learn. So to be able to label, for example, training data, if an AI system is looking at millions of images of faces, because it needs to learn how to discriminate between different faces for a particular application, there has to be a human in the loop to correct that. If an algorithm is connecting, a face that has color with negative consequences because of what is built in it, right? Now is the time for a human being in the loop to say, no, this is broken. It's got to be overridden. And the system has to learn that that association was not a correct association. So that's one. But on top of that, Professor, he's a computer scientist, Iyad Rahman, he came up with the idea of society in the loop, which is now also being considered in HCAI, saying one is the human operator, but the human in the loop. But it's not just about one individual's decision, in how to correct a misbehaving autonomous system. Societal values have to be first embedded in that algorithm. What is it that the users, of that algorithm what are their values? What are their, what is it that they think is absolutely not to be done in a situation?
That you're saying human in the loop. So for me, that's interesting. That's the charioteer in the chariot. Okay, controlling the wild horses. And then you say society in the loop, which is really what a designer does. A designer looks at society, looks at cultural signals, looks at trends, and then looks at the chariot, and then understands where to draw the chariot of design to the path that is being paid forward by society. It's a very interesting thing. We've done it for centuries. As design people have done it for centuries now. What you're saying is very interesting, because you say the societal inputs keep changing. It's a shifting target.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now the society's signals multiplied by the charity's signals are there to continuously harness AI to let it know how best to be there. I would not like to now say in service of humanity, but let's start saying in collaboration with humanity.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So what you're saying now, the designer's role is really the charioteer.
Yes.
And the charioteer now has to understand how to bring in the inputs from society into this. It's just like a top view right now. And then to be able to shape the AI intention, because that's what we are doing.
Yes. Yes.
Into solving for this thing for society.
Yes.
Not solve for society, then it's useless, right? Now, these are all new tool sets of collaborative thinking. So my question to you is a very simple one. I want you to be a bit more specific. Is there a specific process that this human-centered AI approach is likely to have upon?
Yeah, so it is these kinds of elements, which it is incorporating in the human-centered AI design approach, where it's saying, firstly, we have to make sure that the AI system that a designer, an HCAI designer is going to work on, has society in the loop. What do we need to do for that? So the process, they're identifying, because it's still work in progress, they're identifying. One is, how do you, as you pointed out, values change, cultural values change. Do we continuously, poll people, thousands and thousands of people, to see how values are shifting for specific questions? And one example of an HCI work where, they're using this is for driverless cars. And so, in fact, the same professor who talked about society in the loop, he's working together to, in an HCAI approach and collecting data from people about their preferences of ethical values to be implemented in driverless car algorithms. So, we keep hearing of these ethical dilemmas. If a driverless car is in a situation where it either kills a pedestrian or it kills the passengers in it, kills as in there's a situation where one of them will die in order to avoid an accident. Who does it? Whose interest is the driverless car, the algorithm really looking at? So what Professor Rahman says in his society in the loop approach in HCAI is that They are collecting data, for example, and they've collected data from over 30 million people to date on specific questions about ethical dilemmas in driverless cars. What would an individual want the car to do? And based on that, on the insights from that, they are trying to build that, embed that in the algorithms. So the driverless cars don't work according to, somebody who developed it without thinking about what people are expecting. And just in a laboratory, I'm designing the system, but I really don't have any idea what people in Turkey, would they expect one particular way for a driverless car when faced with an ethical dilemma, or would it be different?
I would like to interrupt and add a point here, which is interesting. Apala is talking about this very, very famous experiment, people, if you don't know. You can just go to this website, it's public. Okay. I think it was done by MIT. I don't know exactly which university.
I think so. Yes. The original experiment. Yeah.
And these are visual cues that are given to you. There's a pregnant woman with a baby in, let's say, crib. Are you going to move the car towards that, or are you going to like kill 20 people in a bus, or choose? And very ethical. There's an old man and there's a young woman. Who would you kill? Who would the car kill? At that time, these were the societal inputs. And then, of course, you have all of those. But even at that time, things change. And now when I, in 2023, look at this, I think much as we would take society input, I have a gut feeling, and then I could be wrong, that people are actually training their own personal AI agents. And I'm beginning to see that it's a question of time when they start training their AI agents to understand intention, which is really the game here, towards everything that human would think of, including how they would drive a car. Because there are some people who like to drive it there, and then they're going to use it as personality enhancement. And they're going to use it to like create their identity, because ultimately we're always doing everything to create a unique identity and carve it out, right? So I think it's going to become a Dan GPT moment, do anything now rather than Chat GPT moment. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but you said it. I said it. Design is amoral. What is the point you would like to conclude with before we get to questions from people?
Most certainly. This is an inflection point in our civilization. And we need to be very mindful, therefore, of the forks in the road, of the directions we set. Is it all about profits and, saving costs? Is it about how this planet can perhaps be gradually in a better place if we work together with the capacities of the machine to enhance our own capabilities and see what emerges as we work together? So as Stephen Hawking, who has constantly warned about AI and where it can take us, he says, and I quote, "Success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history. It also might be the last, unless we learn how to avoid risks. In the end," and this is what I think is most important, it all depends on humans, not on machines. My feeling is that the hero and the villain are not separate people. It's one person. It's the human race. We are heroes and we are villains. So we have to reflect, and we have to see, if we cannot take ethical, moral decisions all the time, how we can't expect that any AI system, which has been created by someone like us, it's going to take ethical, moral decisions. So it has to be, that's why I feel it is really a moment for us to reflect and not say, oh, the machines are taking over. They'll take over if we let them.
What Apala is saying here is also a very profound statement. What she's saying, I'll give you by example. And Apala, please check. If I were to hire today somebody in my team, and I say I want somebody to design, but who understands to design for AI, with AI, and 2 applicants turn up, I would actually figure out how to interview to find out who would do responsible design now. Exactly what you're talking about, right? So it's not about your skill. Yeah. It's really about your value systems. I need to know.
Yes.
Because I'm just going to make you into a nuclear weapons designer.
Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying is that for the first time, the same buggers, the same designers who actually screwed up the world by dopamine crashing their brains out into omelets, the same ones who've stolen our attention, the same ones who've devastated democracy. This is the work of designers. I'm sorry. Nobody else did it. The behavior scientists, these people who actually already used computers which were significantly milder than technology with AI, and used it with such devastating effect. Now, for the first time, we would probably need to have boards, certifications, license agreements, auditing over a designer of exactly how responsible, because you're amoral, you're using an amoral tool. Let's make sure you understand how to use it responsibly, right? This is going to be really what us as designers need to bring to the world.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying, right? Let's do this. Anybody, do you have questions? Please share. Any questions? There's something about frameworks. How does UX frameworks in play with human sensitivities evolve in this dynamic dance of AI automation and augmentation?
Okay. I think, yeah, good question. So we have to look at our own UX design frameworks also and see, it does not right now, it does not have any place for collaborating with another entity, a non-human entity, to decide anything in the process of design. We, as designers, go out and run that design lifecycle. We talk to end users, we talk to stakeholders, and then we do the research, we do the strategizing, we do the concept. There is no collaboration with a non-human. It's all us designers. In our team, we are collaborating. If we are not going to include how in designing an AI system, how are we including that augmentation or collaboration aspect? If we don't do that, then we are not going to be able to, have any alignment with technology. We'll do what we think we'll do. The AI systems will be developed in the way that the developers of the AI systems think about it, and it's going to be parallel tracks that run, and we are just going to have to use it for getting the output. But if our framework of design right from the first point involves one stakeholder, new stakeholder being autonomous systems, how do we involve them in the conversations right from the beginning? And also, as we said, the frameworks for developing AI systems, not designing for use, but actually developing, say, a ChatGPT, if it was being developed, one should use concepts like society in the loop. What societal values does ChatGPT have? I don't know. Also, there's no transparency, right? It's a black box. There's no explainability, transparency. These are points that HCAI brings up as important elements in the design process, which we in our UX design process, we don't really pay too much attention to transparency. The user just gets, okay, I'm applying for a loan. I input my income, this, that, and the other, and I didn't get it. It was rejected. Is there any transparency that we think about? That, hey, even before you are going to input your income and your, collateral, whatever it is, these are parameters. Based on this, the decisions will be taken. Am I being made aware? No, as designers, we don't think about it because business stakeholders don't also always ask or want that. But with AI, we have to be very clear about the transparency of what values are you using this AI system, whatever it may be. How are you creating these things? Even something like Midjourney, how are you creating these images? Some of them are very upsetting, and many of them are just, okay, fine. But some of them are upsetting. Based on what values? Are there any values embedded? No, probably not. So I think that's very important. How do you keep societal values?
What do you think about the false prophet problem? Asks whether AI is being confident with wrong answers. Is this future process you've just mentioned?
That's a big problem. And again, we didn't talk about a lot of the processes involved in new ways of thinking like HCAI. There's a lot of focus on what is the goal. Is it precision of the output that AI system will get? Is it precision, or is it taking into account the context and maybe not being totally precise, but in the process, not just, giving answers that if they are not precise, they may still not affect us that badly as an answer that seems very precise, but it hasn't taken into account a lot of shifting contexts. And so there are a lot of examples in HCI, like how do you model cancer diagnosis with an AI system? And if it's going to be narrow and precise, it can give you false positives and say, oh, you have cancer, okay, when you don't have cancer. Is that a better outcome than to say you don't have cancer when you actually do? That's terrible. That's going to be very harmful. So what's the basis? What rules, as designers and analysts and developers, what rules are you going to embed to prevent an AI system from creating outcomes that seem that, they are being very precise, but in that precision lies two ends of what happens to the human user. One end is that, okay, there was a slight mistake in this, but it's okay. It said I have cancer and I don't. On the other hand, it's very definitively said you don't have cancer and I do. That's much worse. So what does it take to create, till we get to really, really accurate stuff, which direction should we make sure we err on, or an AI system errs on, instead of spewing stuff that one cannot distinguish or discriminate, which end of the spectrum it lies. So those elements of how do you embed precision rules are very, very much in the works right now from an HCAI. No, I'm not talking about the computer science point of view, but from human-centered artificial intelligence point of view, because it's important that we stop this spewing out anything and it seems accurate. It doesn't say which end, how it arrived at that. So we can gauge how accurate it may be or not. So I think those elements are very important for AI as it unravels in the future.
Thank you so much for showing the path to designers and to show how important and crucial the role of the designer has become. How, as designers, we need to rethink our role more than our skill. How we need to be the bastions of society's value systems and sharpen them and teach the amoral AI system how to look forward to this and how to interact with this, to tell us, Apala, how we need to create a framework of collaboration. I mean, you've really thrown a lot of stuff, and I think we need to get together, all of us, and figure out how to create this regulatory kind of a system, a self-regulatory system for designers, so we can, we don't have a Dan moment, right? Thank you so much. Thank you, really.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much to the chat bubble. Next talk is on designers in the new role of digital privacy in India with the new Digital Privacy Act done with Ekta, and it's fantastic. Everybody just be there, because we don't know as designers how to design for privacy with the new rules. So see you there then. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye.